Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing after-shows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Hey there, Z Nation fans! Welcome to another edition of the AfterBuzz Recap Show. Today we're talking about Episode 6, Resurrection Z. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
How are y'all doing tonight?
We're playing the actual theme, so that's the bullets in my heart.
You are going to cover this episode.
Get it right.
How are you guys doing tonight?
I'm very sad.
I'm doing great. You know who I want to know more about how they're doing tonight?
Yes. We will introduce them, but joining me on the panel first, Katie Cullen.
Hi, all my buddies.
Zach Wilson.
Hey, guys.
Guys, I'm your host, Megan Salinas, and today we have not one, but two very special guests joining us in the studio tonight. We have director John Hyams joining us. He was the director for this episode.
Hi.
And then we also have Tom Everett Scott, who plays Garnett. And we're
How's it
so
going?
sad.
What?
Hi.
This is going to be a somber interview.
This is going to be very sad.
No, we're going to be making terrible jokes the entire time. That's how we roll.
Horrible.
Can
Okay,
we play
okay,
Enya throughout the rest of this?
I
think that would be
Someone
appropriate.
cue up, like, say,
Yeah.
no, only time. Cue up only time.
Yeah.
This entire recap will just be a eulogy. But it's a very different episode because it starts in one place and it ends in a completely different place. It starts kind of, apart from the creepy church, it kind of starts with this sense of hope with our group coming to what seems to be sort of a safe haven, albeit kind of suspicious a little bit because no weapons are allowed inside, so that's clearly a hazard in the zombie apocalypse. But, like, it seems to be a good place where they can unwind for a little bit, and then it just ends on such a dark note. What was your guys' reaction when you were sitting down and going through the script on this one?
I mean,
You go first.
I knew it was coming. I did. I honestly did. We joked before that I wasn't supposed to die until that. And we found out that day when I asked for a raise.
Oh.
But no, I knew it was coming, and I'm just a big fan of the show and the scripts, and so I thought it was very well written, very well done. I was glad I was going out on that note because I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, first of all, I love just the concept of the episode, the whole kind of suicide zombie cult and that whole terrorist aspect. So I thought that the central conceit, which this was written by Craig Angler and Carl Schaefer, I thought that whole idea was great. I thought it was a good concept to send Garnett out on because he had really become the protagonist, and I think the viewers of the show in general were probably believing that he was pretty safe. So I think that Carl really was working with those expectations of the viewers, and I think the one thing working on the show that we got to know is that if you're ever trying to if the audience ever is feeling safe, that's kind of a place you want to have them so that you can then pull the rug out from under them. No one is really ever safe on the show, and anything that seems utopian is always going to end in flames and tears, and that's that's kind of part of the quite frankly dark comedy of the show. But it's also I like the fact that this is a show that can be sometimes really broad comedy and real just grindhouse entertainment, but that in an episode like this, certainly of the ones that I'd worked on up to this point, was the most emotional of the episodes, and that it could be dramatic and you could have these character moments. And I thought what Tom and Kalita Smith did in this episode is really great acting and really sold that stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of the interesting thing about this particular series is that the emotional weight is increased with every episode that we get. Because I thought last week's episode with Warren's character was really emotionally driven, and then this week just topped it with our goodbye for Garnett and everything like that. So
I agree that episode 5 was a good setup for that, and I generally get that feeling from the people that are working on the show as they're reading the scripts as well. Like, you know, the people working on the show, makeup artists and everybody, you know, and everyone starts talking about it. You start kind of getting to feel, oh, maybe the audience will also feel this way. And it was episode 5 that really started to feel like, oh, there's some, you know, we're making some inroads into the emotion of the show and the cast. And like, you know.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I directed 1 and 2, but I actually don't think that the show really reached that level until 4. I thought 4 was a really good episode. I think the stuff with Doc and the stuff with 10K, you know, that was the first time where I think the show kind of was able to give people an idea of what it will be, which is that it is about characters, and that you're going to learn about these characters, that everyone has these stories that led them to this point, and ultimately, just like any show, you want to watch. I mean, plot is interesting, and you know, action and all that is fun. But killing zombies is going to get old real quick. It's really got to just be about the characters and how much you care about them. So I feel like 4 is when that started to happen.
Totally.
I thought 5 was a great setup, and I think this one, you know, I think if people have given the show a chance up to this point, these are the ones where you kind of hook them. And I think the next few episodes really hang on to that well too.
Well, that's awesome, and it's such a great dynamic too, because we have the emotional weight, you know, that goes with these episodes, but then we can also play around and have a zombie tornado, you know, tearing through town and everything like that. It's a lot of fun.
Those aren't sharks.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is as any time it gets dramatic, then there's comedy is mixed in, or you know, and I think that is what makes the show fun, for lack of a better word, is that it really is just, it's there to entertain you, to to move fast. It is never a slow moving show. It's always, I mean, this episode, I thought the first act was like the slowest first act we've had of any episode.
Yeah,
but that's because it like then goes crazy.
It was setting it up. Yeah. Right. Introducing everybody. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it was like this really kind of slow expositional first act.
Even during the slow setup, and let's go ahead and talk about it, the slow setup, there's still this very big sense of dread and uneasiness, because one of the first thing we see in this episode is this church with all these people wearing upside down crosses, which if you are religious, you're like,
nope,
that's unsettling.
No.
It's not a pot. No, it's supposed to go the other way.
No, do the.
No, you're not supposed to hang it like that. Like
when you invert a symbol, it means the opposite. Do you have any idea what you're implying?
We had a hard time finding a church that was going to let us hang the upside down cross.
Yeah. No wonder why.
Yikes.
But
you have to cleanse the entire place afterwards.
And I don't know what sort of influences went into the writing for this particular episode, but I got a very like Children of the Corn feel from this particular cult. And, you know, granted, that's very cultish for anything like that. But that specifically because with that particular cult, you know, when the kids got to be a certain age, they axed the kids. And it's very similar with this. It's like, oh, good, you get to be enlightened. You get to be a zombie now. Isn't that great for you? And it's just like, no.
Well, I think that's a good, interesting reference, because I think some of that also has to do with Brian Sutherland, who played Jacob. Because his performance is very Children of the Corny.
He is. He's so smiley.
Yeah,
and
that smile and the one thing that he brought to it, like the first thing that he found himself about that character was that parted in the middle hair. Like he showed up on set with his hair. He's like, I've decided this is my hair.
Like, very like James Cagney in Public Enemy #1. Like,
it's that always smiling.
Yeah.
Nothing shakes his faith, and you're like, that's disturbing.
He's a Stepford smiler.
Yeah.
Ugh. Smile all the time, and it's creepy.
he was honestly a blast to have
He was
around.
fun, yeah.
He was absolutely hysterical and and great and just perfect. And that was actually interesting because we had cast or auditioned a bunch of different people for different cult members, and actually there was another guy who was going to be Jacob, and it wasn't until we randomly saw Brian's audition and said, I think this guy has it, and then we moved whoever we originally cast that, we moved him to one of the other cult member positions. But he just, there's something, like you say, about that smile, that kind of unflinching positivity, and that was what we and actually he told us a funny story. He's from Seattle. All the cult guys, Brian and
a lot of the actors we got were from Seattle,
David Hogan, who played Patrick, and so there was like 3 of the main cult guys all drove from Seattle. And basically, did he tell you this about?
I don't know. What story is this going to be?
They basically, like, for the entire drive, were just reading scripture and just like,
just
like having creepy, culty scripture, and like they were just in character for the entire 4-hour drive from Seattle to Spokane.
That's terrifying.
It's a bit actory for me. I don't know if I could do that.
It's a little method, yeah.
It's one way to get in character. Get prepared.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a long ride. I mean,
it's 4
something
hours,
to be said for the movie magic.
Yeah, well,
that's gotta be weird when you get out of the car after 4 hours of that. And
You're like, praise, brother.
What kind of headspace are you in when you walk out of the car?
It gave them that lovely glint in their eyes.
It's like Southern Baptist gone horribly, terrifyingly wrong. Everyone is welcome, whether you like it or not.
Julian was the other one. Julian was the other member in the car ride.
Oh, okay.
Julian, who played name is escaping me. Which is the one who jumps on the desk and the first guy?
Oh yeah, that dude, the big dude.
Yeah.
Is Patrick? Was that his name?
No, what was he? There's Jacob, Patrick.
But the guy who jumps on the table was great.
Yeah, I'm forgetting the casting. But yeah, the first guy to commit suicide, who was
he gets blended in the face.
He gets the blender in the face.
Yeah,
that was amazing.
It's one of my favorite.
Yeah,
zombie
and
killings.
actually, I think my other favorite part about this episode was that in most of the episodes, it is like our characters and then anonymous zombies. But in this episode, it's basically all these people who are, living, and then we see them turn, and then and we see all these people who we saw pre-zombie, and then we see they're zombie. Yeah. And so it was because basically everyone you saw as a zombie who's a main zombie, you saw pre-Z.
Yeah.
And so that became a real interesting and kind of funny thing on set too. Is like, how are you going to do your zombie?
Oh man, it was so nerve-wracking because I knew that I had to do mine at the end of the thing, and I was watching all these other actors do their zombie and do it really well, and I was like, oh geez, I haven't really even thought about this. Like, how am I going to do it? And the guy who played the major, who was my friend, who was like the leader of that,
Joe, yeah,
right,
Joe.
Right.
He did Major Williams. He did such an amazing job as a zombie. He was just so good, and I was like, man, how'd you do that? And he was, oh well, I just kind of thought about it, and he had this whole long explanation for it that he just then put into his performance, just gave it 100%. So I was really intimidated to be a zombie.
But it was right, and didn't he say? I remember what he had said.
He said his character was really A type, type A personality, and that he would be in purest form a real predator, kind of
he'd be a type A zombie.
Type A zombie.
It's I'm gonna go out there and eat those guys.
So he was very Velociraptor in his approach.
Yeah.
Zombie velociraptors.
They can open doors.
Oh.
Zombies cannot open doors.
They have to
They
knock.
can knock. That was great. I don't think it's the first 5 minutes of the first episode, and we're still not over that zombie knocked on the door. That's just not okay.
Well, and it happened again this time around.
Well,
That's true.
They kind of bang into the door.
That's true. That's true. That was more of a banging as opposed to a polite knock, in the
There was
first
certainly
episode.
some banging on the inside.
Oh.
What is that? I don't understand. What
you and Kalita.
I know.
Well,
that's like the problem. You're not supposed to do that, right? That was my major mistake.
Oh
Garnett's
yeah,
major
horror
mistake.
movie. You can't have sex
Yeah.
in a horror movie, otherwise you're gonna bite it.
That's right.
Well, you can't
But
have
it wasn't.
good
No.
sex. That's the
No, it was good for her. He was eating out.
Right.
And that, men, learn how to do that.
And we got our
Learn
explicit
how
for
to
the
do
week.
it well.
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
it didn't. I don't even know if you had been. Didn't appear that you had been taken care of yet.
Right.
On your, I think you were. She was just a receiving.
She should have died.
Well, yeah, I mean,
No,
You hadn't
he
even
was
got-
being a gentleman.
he was.
You
he
take
was.
care of the lady
And he-
first.
and he
before
died.
you
And
take
What
he
did
care
died
of
he
for
get
that.
for it?
Yeah.
Well, that was
A bullet to the head
self-sacrificing.
from that same woman.
That was self-sacrificing, which was also gentlemanly and heroic, and everything you expect the main
Head for
character
head.
of a horror movie to be.
That's very.
Oh. Hey.
I think it's very much in line with Garnett's character that
Exactly.
that he would be a gentleman in the sack that way.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
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 Well, both of those
And he'd
things
be
are
looking out for
in
others.
character.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
him obviously
Stand-up guy,
taking
so to
care of
speak.
other people. And then taking a bullet for someone. Both of those things are what we've
Yeah.
come
Right.
to expect from this character.
Yeah.
As heartbreaking as it is.
Yeah, I like that character the way he was written. I mean, it started off where he was like really not able to help put down this woman at the camp in the first episode, because he'd like seen too much, and then to have to like step up and be the leader after Hammond had done like this really bang up job of being like this total like leader and alpha guy, and yeah, so and then just having to take over that role for Garnett, it was a fun thing to play. It was a fun arc to follow.
Yeah, it was funny because the editor the guy who cut this episode, it was his first episode on the show, and
The guy who cut 6?
yeah, and he
Did a nice job.
he did
Very
he
nice.
did. He did. Eric Anderson is his name, and but when he got to that part, when I watched his first assembly, he had kind of cut it in a way where it looked a little more accidental that you've been shot. He's like, I just don't think that. He's like, it didn't make sense that he would jump in front and just take the bullet. I'm like, no, that's this character definitely. That's the point of the character. He is going
Gotta
to take
save
a bullet.
Murphy.
That has to be how it's done. And I think anyone who watched the show and anyone who writes for the show knows like that is definitely the point. He had a mission. He was National Guardsman. He's definitely going to be.
Yeah,
Mission all the way.
fall on the grenade kind of thing.
Right, fall on the grenade.
Gotta
so,
do it.
So it was a heroic death. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're gonna go, it was actually a pretty good way to go.
Yeah. No, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah. There could have been so many words. No, there could. No, I am sad because it was a fun group to be with. So, but yeah, there could have been much worse ways to go.
Yeah, that's true. It could have been like.
Yeah, it could have been like the guy in
Could have been
Jurassic
like had a
Park.
blender in your face.
Oh, could have had
Yeah.
a blender in the face. Yeah. Although I think that
Which-
would have been cool.
I think that highlights the other thing I really like about this particular episode is with the weapons being taken away from everybody when
Yeah.
they enter into Provincetown. Just because they have a strict no weapons policy because they've had issues in the past, it's easier to just have everybody check their weapons and have nobody armed on the inside because that causes problems, is the creativity that had to go into, okay, how do we kill these zombies when all of our weapons are stuck in there? And just the creativity with the egg beater and literally throwing the book at zombies.
Right.
Well,
Everything like
and
that.
I think that really highlights the difference between our crew of people who have been traveling and who have had to take out zombies as a matter of survival, and these people who have lived in this very safe, non-weaponized town. The people who haven't had to kill zombies before are absolutely panicking. They don't know what to do. And our characters are like, well, gotta improvise, get the book.
Grab the book.
Right,
stop
and it
the
was-
zombie.
And 10K knowing what's up.
Yeah, he was very observant.
He's sharp. Yeah.
He knew exactly right away something was wrong when somebody got up and left. He knew what was up, and he had the good sense to follow her when she left.
I thought that he thought she was cute, like when he first saw her, and then in the cafeteria when she stood up and he followed her, there was music that told me that was not the case.
Well, but you're right though. Like that's the idea is that because this was a point of discussion when we were cutting in a discussion with Carl, because it's like when she first comes in, he does think she's cute. Like he's looking at her at the fence, and he's giving her eyes. And then, but when he's in there in the mess hall and they're kind of talking, and then two of them stand up at that point,
he sees that as a move.
He sees something weird there because we were deciding on the music cue there and talked to Carl.
I thought it was very good.
And I was like, hey, at this point, now it's like French Connection, right? Like he's like, what's going on? He's staking this out. And Carl was like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, we were deciding whether, because you could have played it like he followed her because he still was like kind of wanted to chat her up.
Romantic comedy.
Sure.
Right.
Which is not at all what we're in.
I don't know how to people, but man, she's pretty.
Yeah, and it's like there's a certain point where you can't have the characters that behind the audience. I mean, the audience all knows what they're up to no good. So it's like if we're gonna play him, how long can you play him stupid for before it can be like a Hitchcock move, but it can also be irritating for an audience where like, dude, she's clearly crazy. Do not follow her.
You got to be careful with that dramatic irony. It's like you don't want to annoy anybody, but you also want to build that tension.
Right.
And it makes sense for him to be the one to pick up on it because he's been in so many survival situations even before the apocalypse happened.
All those weapons that he had to check.
The chain in his pants. I'm like, how did you, where was that? Didn't that hurt? Okay, never mind.
That was our Spinal Tap moment.
I mean,
That was funny. I like
10K
that.
is, I think, the most astute member of the group.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
he's just like, he's always watching. He's like ready. He's like, oh, okay, there's zombies. Oh, the head's alive too. I'm gonna take that one out.
What's his count up to? I think it's like I think when they're rolling into Provincetown, it's like 1,954.
Yeah.
900? Was it that high?
Yeah, and 1,954. If I heard correctly, I might have misheard.
I can't even remember myself.
He's almost at 2K.
Yeah,
he's a fifth.
He's getting there.
Good for him.
He's got a lot of bullets.
He does.
He does, but talking about the whole weapons thing, like it was definitely made it a lot more fun to take everyone's weapons away from a suspense position, and I even feel that like in episodes we did later, it was always like, can we take their weapons away? Can we have them run out of bullets? It's always like so much better when they're not armed, because then you feel some tension and then it's always fun to have them like blow the hell out of everybody, but you do need to manufacture ways to make them vulnerable. And I mean, I remember in that bit where everyone grabs a weapon, Doc, Russell Hodgkinson was carrying like this rubber. When we did the first take, he just grabbed like this rubber spatula, and then he's like, okay, let's I got to get something good. I'm like, no, let's run with that.
Yeah, he's carrying it, and it's covered in blood, and I'm like, what did he really do with that?
No, it's covered in jelly. Yeah, it was like in the jelly or something.
Oh, that's even funnier.
And so he literally every scene he's like, can I ditch him? I'm like, no, let's hang on to the spatula.
Security spatula.
And then you guys remember with the books we were trying to debate, like at first they'd given the prop guys had given you guys like chair legs and stuff.
Yeah.
And it seemed like that was just too effective a weapon. So we went for the books.
Improvisational, yeah.
Well, yeah, because again, these are seasoned veterans. So if you give them a chair leg the size of a baseball bat, of course they're going to be able to take out zombies, no problem.
That's easy.
But you give them a book, and then they have to get a little bit more creative.
It's the King James Bible. I'm going to put it to use.
That's right.
The book is a pretty good weapon. Did you guys have any favorites? Like, without too much spoilers, because we got a lot of episodes left, but so far, have you had any big favorite ridiculous weapons?
I mean, the Z-Whacker's by far.
Yeah, that's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fun one that just keeps coming back.
Did they get it? I didn't.
Yeah,
really
I did.
Addie
She
was
had
able
it at
to
the
pick it
end.
up.
She picked it up off the ground.
Actually, now that we're talking about it, I'm wondering, were any of those books Bibles?
No, they were encyclopedias.
They were actually encyclopedias, although I know like someone on Twitter thought of it as a Bible. I'm like, hey, sure.
I mean, the irony would have been pretty hilarious if that had been the case.
I've seen Bibles that big.
Yeah,
They
but
do come in
encyclopedias do a
giant
lot of
size.
damage. If you've ever dropped one on your foot, they hurt quite a bit.
Knowledge is power.
That's
I was
true.
just thinking of the Bourne Ultimatum. where he
There's a book fight.
fights
so
the guy with
with
the
the
book. And,
magazine.
yeah, he's got the
Yeah.
books. And he slams the book in the guy's neck, and he does a whole it's a whole book brawl.
There was that. I remember at one point in that movie he had a magazine, and that was the one that shocked me the most because he like rolls it up and then uses it just like, to hit directly in the face.
That's awesome.
And so like, I learned that magazines are weapons.
Yeah.
Have you seen like Vogue and 17? They're like 200 pages.
You need like you need a thick one.
Could do damage just by
Vanity
hitting
Fair.
someone. I mean, Cat Fancy's not going to do it. You need some
You need
ridiculous
Cosmo.
beauty tome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Nintendo
Vanity
power.
Fair.
Nintendo power.
That takes me back.
And you can scream that while you're hitting them with it.
But another really interesting thing about this episode is kind of the journey that Murphy has been on as well, because the makeup for one is really good, because as we go on, he just looks more and more ashen. And even the care that was taken with his hair as it's growing back from having shaved it, it's growing back in patches. And like, that's really unsettling too. And just how how he started off, obviously a white collar criminal, and he's the one that's been making all these selfish, really funny, but really dark humored jokes this whole time too. And where he ends this episode, it was kind of an odd place for him to end, with just him like standing there in front of all those zombies, like going, "I am your Messiah." And obviously he was doing that to take down Pastor Jacob. But man, was it creepy.
Somebody's got a theater degree.
Theater degree or a couple screws loose.
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
I mean, you learn pretty good theater skills when you're committing postal fraud.
I'm not quite sure how that came about, but that was exceedingly interesting, is just to see him kind of embrace what's happening to him.
I mean, I think it's what ultimately will set this show apart from any other shows of the genre, is that it is an origin story, and it is taking the mythology in different directions with that character and what he's becoming. And that's really the fun of the show. And that's, if the show, should it continue, I mean, that is really what it's about, is taking this established mythology and then pushing it in a direction. And interesting bit about Keith in that, when the original beginning of the episode was actually everyone just driving along, and it was that dialogue where Garnett and Warren are kind of flirting in the car, and it was that dialogue that actually happens when they get to the car, and they have that was the only dialogue. The part of him peeing in the wheat fields wasn't there. And I remember we were shooting the expositional scene in the mess hall where the group comes in and there's other followers there, and I remember Keith, who plays Murphy, said to me, shouldn't people be looking at me? I mean, shouldn't people be staring at me? Isn't this weird that I look like this? And I was, you're on the set, you're flying. I'm like, well,
yeah.
It does make sense. You're right. Yeah, we should have some extras looking at you. We kind of did that. And he was still getting he still seemed frustrated that this idea wasn't really represented in the script. And he's like, what about everyone else? I mean, wouldn't they be talking about me, the group? Wouldn't they be saying, look at this guy? And said, I don't disagree with you. I mean, I don't have a solution. We're a couple days into this shooting here, and but you're right. And he says, well, I have an idea. Oh, okay. And he said, what if, and he kind of pitched the idea of that scene. What if Murphy's like out peeing in a field?
It's a great scene.
And they're all just staring at him as he
talking
does it.
about him.
It's just so good.
And I said, that's a really good idea. I mean, we're shooting what is supposed to be that scene tomorrow. I'll go talk to Craig and Carl about it. And to their credit, I went to their office after shooting, said that to them, and they were like, yeah, it's a good idea. And Craig and Carl wrote a pass of that scene that night and had the pages the next morning. And to me, I really love the scene. It's a really good scene.
It sets things up perfectly, the relationship between the group
Yeah.
dynamic, him outside the group, and yet he's still part of the group. And you kind of do feel bad for him. There was some really great stuff written there, and it does come out of the moment. Keith is really giving so much to this part and giving so much to this show. This isn't a guy that anyone really knew about before. Unless you knew about his asylum work that he had done before. You know, but it's such a coup to have this guy be Murphy, because he's passionate about it, and he's super clever.
Yeah, he has been. Yeah, he's grabbed onto the character and, you know, hung on for dear life, and he's really kind of been the guardian of his character in a sense. And like I say, and that's what actors do all the time. I mean, all actors are the ones who are kind of, that's their department, you know. His department is Murphy, you know. Tom's department was Garnett.
I was the head of the Garnett department.
You're the head of the Garnett department, and when things are not really adding up or something is false, it's kind of up to that department to bring it to your attention. And Keith did, you know, that was a great example of what actors do beyond just kind of saying the lines and doing them well, is making sure that the character is honest and that everyone's reacting to them honestly. So that improved the show, I thought.
Yeah, and it did a really good setup, actually, starting off with everybody talking about Murphy, and then again ending with kind of Murphy almost saving everybody. You know, we had 10K obviously taking a big part of that, but just that stall tactic, it was enough to basically save everyone.
Yeah.
And this is a character who we see just minutes before doesn't do that. There's a woman right in front of him, and he moves out of the way when the zombie's charging at her. And so we see that he's still afraid, and we see that he's still really concerned about his own life.
But there's a reason for that, though, which is, I mean, Murphy's character has been since episode 1 and always is. He's the truth teller. So he is never going to go out of his way to save a person out of compassion. He needs to keep the group alive because they are transporting him to California.
They keep him alive.
Yeah. And you'll see in later episodes him do even crueler things than what he did to that woman by letting her go, but because she is of no use to him at all. And so it wasn't necessarily cowardice that he didn't save her. It's like, she's not his problem. And that scene is really about him saying, wow, these guys didn't go near me. You know, all these zombies just ran past
discovery.
him. So yeah, he has one focus and one mission, and that is to save his own butt. He does develop some connections to the other characters in the group, and there are some things that maybe border on friendship and loyalty that happens there.
He plays cards with Doc. We played cards once.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Friends-ish.
Is this a good time for a zombie Jesus joke?
Go
because
right
I feel
ahead.
like this is a good just for him playing zombie Jesus at the end. Like, no, I'm the Messiah. Look, he doesn't fight me.
Sweet
And
zombie Jesus.
Well, if Preacher Man weren't completely bat-flip insane, they would have been fine.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the thing. It's like the idea that you can establish a paradise, like, or just an island of good-natured people anywhere in the zombie apocalypse, like in this sort of wasteland, this horrifying world, is tough. But it only takes one. It takes one nut job.
One jerk to ruin it for everybody else.
Well, but it was also Joe showing them mercy and bringing them back in, no questions asked. Because you brought this up, the metal detector should have picked up the little metal blades and the crosses.
Yeah,
and either they didn't wand them or they didn't pat them down. I mean, if they'd done anything resembling a search, big ol' upside down wooden cross under your shirt is not going to stand up to a pat down. But they just let him back in.
There's lots of stuff that's sharp besides metal. Could have been any number of materials.
True, but them coming back in, wearing those things concealed would have been a really big, oh, you're not who you say you are. We're kicking you back out, tip off.
Yeah, they did they did a bad security job. I mean, look, 9/11 is less about terrorism, more about crappy airport security. Right, so
we did have a former TSA person.
Yeah, I mean, and it shows.
Hey.
It shows.
I mean,
but that was everyone's decision. It was Joe's to let them in. It was all of these other security people who should have done their jobs.
They should have stopped them.
Yeah.
That was the goof.
But
He
it's
shouldn't have let
their
them in the first place.
friends.
They brought
They're our
food.
friends.
Well, and they had family that were still in there.
They did have food.
That was the big point, was that they had friends and family still here.
Like when they went to wand the cross, they just popped the strawberry in their mouth.
He just held the fruit basket a little higher.
Yeah.
Please accept this gift as our apology.
They just reach in there and pull out strawberry.
Yeah, exactly.
Why were you
Depending on
keeping
who
a
does that.
strawberry under your... Don't question it.
Depending
Yeah,
on
it's
which
a
of the three
strawberry.
it is, it might be a good thing, it might be a bad thing. I'm just saying.
But yeah, so it just kind of says a lot, again, about the world that they're in, and the fact that we're traveling across America, and just the different people that you are going to come across as you make this journey. And it's, of course you'd come across a really creepy cult. Of course you'd come across cannibals and all sorts of other interesting things. But of course it's nice to see that you would come across good people as well. And I think they make the point that this is the first time they've come across somebody that they knew pre-zombie apocalypse. And it is very interesting, you know, when people's paths diverge like that and you come back together, where they're at. You know, they're at completely different points in their lives when Joe and Garnett meet again than they were when they parted ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it does go along with the theme of every time this group goes somewhere, they ruin everything that they just showed up for. So, you know, Joe had a really nice thing going, and then he let these guys in, and it all
We leave
ended
every
in
place in
flames.
flames, yeah.
That wasn't your guys' fault, though. That was
Well,
Pastor Jacob's fault.
It's true,
It was-
true, but
It was going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
it seemed like
It was just horrible, horrible timing on their part, because
Yeah.
the pastor's plan had absolutely nothing to do with Zombie Jesus and company rolling into town.
Right.
It was going to happen anyway.
Well,
And they just happened to be there for it.
Yeah. Well, I like the idea of the cult springing up because it felt also very real as well. Because it's something that you don't get a ton of, but you start to see a little bit more. It reminded me a little bit of The Leftovers, did the big cult thing. Because when something supernatural happens that we can't fully explain, and what I liked is the way that it's framed this episode with Citizen Z talking about, like, we don't know exactly why it happened. Of course religious cults are going to spring up because religion feeds into questions that cannot be answered.
Exactly. That makes perfect sense. And just even going back to Citizen Z saying, you know, maybe we brought this on ourselves. Maybe we had a chance, you know, to make the world, you know, a better place, and we completely screwed it up. You know, maybe this is exactly what we deserve. But at the end of the day, we're still here. And if you survive this, then, you know, we have another chance to maybe remake the world. And again, that's kind of what we have with Murphy is it this chance to, you know, sort of bring the world out of the ashes, or is he turning into something else entirely? And it's just, I have so many questions.
It's begging a lot of questions, this show. It's definitely provocative. I like that. And it's, you know, I mean, like the whole thing about the cults and that stuff I thought was interesting. What will people do when society breaks down? What will they do? What will they go to be safe? And what will they lean on? You know, and you're going to gravitate to leaders. You're going to gravitate to leaders who have some kind of, you know, sway over you. And yeah, it's definitely going back to a darker time.
Yeah, and I think that is that's always, I think that's the central idea of any zombie show or any zombie story is, in a weird way, the zombies are never the enemy.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's always other people.
The people are the enemy, and how people react to the situation. And I think I remember when I read this script thinking, if there was a zombie virus and anyone who died would become a zombie, this cult would happen.
Yeah.
Of all the things that would happen, there would be the suicide zombie cult.
Right.
Like,
and
it just
vacuum
seemed like
of power, there would be somebody who,
someone would come up with that idea.
Yeah, it's a genius idea. Yeah. I kind of like, you know, as I watched this episode in particular, I did kind of wonder, like, what was Jacob's actual goal? Did he really believe it? Was he just into the power? Just having sway? He didn't have a ton of power. He just had a bunch of people who followed him.
Right.
But he's, you know, what is he angling for?
It's a good question. I mean, like, what was Jim Jones angling for? Ultimately, I guess it's on the cynical side, it's power. But on the other side, you could say maybe they just truly believe it. Maybe he truly believed this.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it crossed over into follow my religion or else.
Yeah.
Forcibly so, and that's like in
that-
real life. That's where you hit massive, massive issues.
Yeah, maniacal.
And most
Egomaniac.
cults, I have noticed, and because I'm pretty interested in cult ideas, they always seem to end. They always seem to end up like the final thing is, well, we're going to do this. It's going to be paradise, paradise. And by the way, I get to have sex with your wife.
Scientology, everybody. Scientology.
That seems to be where they all lead to.
It's interesting that you bring that up, though, because that is
what Jacob
essentially.
I think he might have been, angling towards that.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because this is a cult, and they are saying, that you will know peace and everything like that. But they destroy paradise in their wake because this place is essentially kind of maybe not perfect, but it's working, and it's
But
giving
it's not
people
their version of paradise, so it's wrong.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, he was a little bitter, right? He got kicked out.
That was
so-
the other thing.
Yeah.
I was like, you have some personal.
He had a little
issues
bit of a
going on
bone
here.
to pick with Joe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess it boils down to like because he's taking quotes out of the Bible that seem to feed the cult so perfectly and feed his mission, like about coming back from the dead, about like converting others to like helping them see the light. And that's sort of what religion does. Is it
Well, the
especially
dark
if you
side,
want to?
for
Yes,
sure.
especially if you intend to. If you're trying to convince yourself or other people, picking out little things out of context like that
exactly.
can absolutely feed that kind of fury.
It's kind of like using Leviticus to condemn gay people while
We're not
still
gonna get
eating
started on that
seafood. Yeah.
Basically, yeah, without acknowledging the New Testament and everything like that. That's
Or,
a discussion. for
breaking
another-
the other Levitican laws.
And then there's
that other
Sam Jackson's speech in Pulp Fiction,
Yeah. True.
which was totally made up. You know that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's not
Sounds Bible.
But by God, it sounds cool.
perfect.
Did you know they put those Bible verses on Nick Fury's grave in Captain America 2?
Oh,
They
that's so
quoted,
funny.
was
That's
it Corinthians?
fantastic.
They
That's
put
not. It's not in your Bible.
Right.
zombies are in mine.
Sadly, we are running short on time. Before we go, really quick, do you guys have any other upcoming projects that you want to talk about real quick before we go?
No, I think everyone should just continue to watch Z Nation, despite the fact that my amazing character is no longer part of it. Just drag yourself to the TV. I know that you're bereft. I know that you are
Yeah.
in pain.
We'll miss
But
you.
just make sure you see the rest of it.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
will.
if you keep watching, you'll know that someone else will die.
Oh, great.
Well, yeah.
Thanks for that.
I don't know when, and I don't know if it's this season, but you have to feel safe knowing that.
Well, the stakes are absolutely raised.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna believe anyone can survive now.
Yeah.
Well, we
this
were
is
lulled
twice in
in-
a row we've killed our main character.
Yeah.
We were lulled into a false sense of security because, Doc survived the elevator shaft and the grenade.
That's right.
And then we had a bullet to the heart, and it's kind of hard to survive that.
Why do I feel like Doc's just going to survive everything?
Doc is zombie Jesus. Murphy's a red herring.
Because Doc's the best.
I may
It would
come
be
to
tough
eat
to
those
kill.
words later. I'm just
Yeah.
realizing that I may have just shot myself in the
Yeah.
foot. But,
Or in the heart.
Oh,
Damn
it. Well, do you guys have social media, and where can people go if they want to find out more about you and about the work that you do?
I'm on Twitter at Tom E. Scott.
Yep, I'm on Twitter at J.R. Hyams.
All right, thank you guys.
You have more time.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Great.
Great.
Actually, we
Got
got a
time.
little bit more
Hey.
time.
All right.
Don't know how or why that happened.
I know.
Awesome.
Yay, usually it's like
No one did that for Garnett.
Thank you, booth guy Steve. We
The guy
gave
didn't
you
pop out of the
mercy.
wall
We
again.
have no more time.
It's
have more
okay,
time.
Garnett. We have more time.
There is no booth guy in Garnett's life.
Nope.
So with more time, I'm curious, Tom, because you said you found out before you got the script. Like, how
Yeah.
does that process go when you find out that your character is getting killed?
Well, I knew John actually was the one who told me about the show, and he had this job and was working on it, and he called me and said, there's a part for a 6-episode arc. It's a guy. He told me the whole
Okay, so you knew
the
up
whole
front
story.
going
yeah,
into
he said,
it.
there's going to be I think did you tell me about Harold back then?
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
I did.
you know, Harold Perrineau is cast. He's going to die in the first episode. He's going to be the leader. You're going to take over for him, and then you're going to die in 6. And I was like, great.
Yeah.
And my son, who's 10, was in the back seat of the car when he called me. It was on speakerphone. And John pitched me the whole series, like right there, told me about the zombies and the stuff, and I was going to get shot and all this great stuff. And I was like, cool, man, I'll read the script. And I hung up, and my son was like, Dad, you got to do it. I was like, yeah, you're right. So he helped me make that decision.
So you guys knew, John, right from the top that this
Yes.
character was meant to die.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the entire season was plotted out before, you know, all 13 episodes, and even a general arc for season 2 has been plotted out before we rolled cameras. Now, you know, a lot of things change episode to episode, but those major things absolutely were set up from the get-go. So yeah, we knew, and I mean, it was rough because we liked having Tom around. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was sad to see him go.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
We were hanging out
Yeah.
up there. It's good times. We went
Yeah.
to college together. We've been friends for a long time, so it was a chance to actually just hang out.
Yeah,
but,
we were roommates up there in Spokane, actually. I lost my apartment mate. I moved. It was too sad to see the empty room there. I had to move to a different place.
Aw.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
at least,
showbiz.
Yeah.
At least you know from the get-go, because there are lots of other shows where people don't find out their character dies until they get a knock on the door and or until they actually read the script. And then it's like, oh, I'm dead now.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
rough. I mean, yeah, that does happen too. You don't know well in advance. But I was kind of thinking the reverse. I was like, and I was having such a good time up there. I thought maybe somebody will say, "Hey, don't kill him off." You know, he's doing such a nice job.
Maybe
Don't
someone
kill
will
him."
take a bullet for Garnett instead.
Yeah. Every script. It's the same.
Did I
It's
actually?
so
I don't
bad.
know if I even ever told you at the time that was a discussion that was going around.
No, really.
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah.
very good.
When we were doing that episode,
I think you told me somebody from.
it was like people. It was like, you know, because the Asylum was our studio, and then SyFy is our network, and so between the producers and Asylum, and I forget who it was, but I think it was some people from. I think it was probably Asylum. I think were like, and he's maybe we don't kill him now. Or maybe,
Right.
maybe he survives, or maybe he's like hurt. And
wing
then-
him. Just
Yeah.
hit him in the wing.
And everyone's like, yeah, maybe. And then I remember it was someone from SyFy, and I don't even think it got to Carl, because I think if it got to Carl would be like, sorry, he's like,
He's gotta go.
And Carl was like, yeah, he's got it. I think it was Carl actually, where
Well, I
he's
mean-
like, he's got to go, but he's like, we owe it to the audience. Like you can't
back
we
off of
can't
that.
back off. Like that is an important point to make mid-season, is that not only did we kill Harold, and
Yeah.
that Harold could have just been like, sort of the Janet Leigh,
The
of
black
the
guy in a
show.
horror movie.
Right, exactly. It's exact. I mean, that was kind of funny. I think I said that to Harold, or when they were like, we're going to cast the star of, we need to get a guy, a recognizable face who feels like the protagonist. And Carl's like, yeah, we got this great guy, Harold Perrineau. I'm like, oh, he is great, but now we're just reinforcing the idea that the black guy's the first to go. But
But now the white guy's gone, and
But
we
now
have
we
a
killed the
woman
white
of color
guy.
in
Yeah.
charge.
that's it.
Yay! I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
Yeah.
as sad as we are to see Garnett go, it's like, oh well, Warren's gonna take charge now.
Woman of
Absolutely.
color in charge in a horror movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's
That's dangerous.
She's amazing. She's a
That's gonna be
she's
awesome.
a good leader. Yeah, she's amazing.
I mean, it's kind of funny too, because on the set, I mean, that hierarchy exists amongst the actors as well. It really did, because when on the first episode, Harold was definitely
He set the bar.
the alpha dog. He and by the way, like the coolest guy ever.
Yeah,
loved him.
yeah.
He just
No, in a good way.
Yeah.
He set the bar high. Like he came in and he was like, he was just really prepared. If anybody was wondering if this was just going to be some campy zombie thing that we were going to phone in our performances, like that first day, Harold looked you right in the eye, and and his performance said, "I'm not kidding around. I'm taking this serious. It's going to be fun, but we're going to take it seriously." And I think everybody went, "Oh,
Right.
I better look at my script."
Gotta bring
'Cause
my A game.
Harold's
Yeah.
killing it. So that's what you mean by
he
that.
really did. He raised everyone's game in episode 1, and then Harold went down in episode 1. So literally Tom, because there is always one actor who is the, you know, who's number 1 on the call sheet, who's got the best, who is, and however that actor.
You almost said the best trailer.
The best trailer. I know. You did have the best trailer, actually.
After Harold.
After Harold. Harold had the best trailer. Yeah, and then yours was better than anyone else's, so it's the best trailer, all that stuff.
Well, Kalita had the same size as me, so you could tell she was going to lead after I went.
Right. She had it. Yeah, she was still in there, but everyone is going to follow the lead of that actor. If that actor is
not a good leader,
ornery, then everyone's going to be ornery. If that actor is lazy, it allows everyone else to be lazy. So, but whatever it might be, we had Harold. And then Harold was gone, and then it was you, and then when you were gone, there was another power vacuum, and Kalita quite easily sort of stepped into that.
She's good at it. Yeah.
You know, but what you'll find in the show is that while Kalita stepped in, you know, Keith was also the guy standing there with his arms outstretched like the Messiah. Don't think that he's ready to take a back seat either. You know, everyone knows how important their character is to the show. So when there's a power vacuum, there becomes a power struggle, and that's sort of the interesting arc of the show.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be fun.
It will be interesting, especially because Murphy and Warren do tend to butt heads, and usually she can smack him back down. But as we've seen, he's clearly changing, so it's going to be very interesting to see if eventually he's like, no, I'm calling the shots now.
Well, in every episode before this one, everyone is like saving his butt, and in this one, he sort of
returned.
He kind of was. He showed them that he was able to survive in ways none of them could.
Are you eventually going to get everybody on the show?
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We are trying.
So. Yeah.
We that's the goal.
I think we're like halfway there now.
There's.
You got Michael. He came on. Michael Welch.
Yeah.
You got Nat.
Anastasia.
Yeah,
Yes.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got to get Kalita.
And they were here last week.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Kalita and
Kalita and Keith
At the
came
same time.
Oh, that's a good group.
They were fantastic.
They're buds.
Yeah,
He
they're
barely
total buds.
spoke last
we
week.
we would love
were
to have
hilarious.
them back on. We do have some people who hopefully will be coming back on, and we have some people that haven't come on yet that we're still reaching out to and working on.
So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get Russ out here somehow.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Got to
We were
get
thinking
hot.
maybe a Cullen, because that's a bit of a ways to travel.
Well, yeah,
it's
even
tough.
a call-in. I mean, whatever it is, but
Yeah.
he's
Because Carl called in episode 2.
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah. So yeah, we are very much looking forward to having more guests, and it was really great getting to talk to you guys this week about this week's episode, because it was just such a game changer. Everything, you know, we know now what the stakes are, and we know where we stand, and so it's like, oh goodness, the show just surprised me quite a bit. So
Took a hard left turn there.
yeah, we really did. We really did. But if nothing else, it makes us really excited for what's to come, because now that the audience is thrown off, it's like, okay, what surprises are going to be in store? So
Yeah, well, I think I will say that episode 7 is completely different and a total blast. It's one of the best episodes, directed by Abram Cox. It's a really, really great one. So you guys should have Abram on next week.
oh,
If you can get me his information,
I
I will
will.
get in contact with him.
He's great. He's a great guy, and he'd be very entertaining on your show. And he's a great director. And his episode, I won't really spoil what it is. I mean, you'll start seeing promos, but it's totally, totally different than any other episode.
I hope we get a little bit of comic relief after the end of this one, because that went dark.
Well,
There
Murphy's
is.
still around, so we're going to get some black comedy at least.
That's true.
No, it does have that.
Well, we have to wrap up, I'm afraid. Is there any final thoughts that you guys want to give on this episode, or on the other work that you guys are doing?
Or on the series in some cases.
No, I just want to say thank you for having us on, and I have nothing to add now that I'm dead.
Oh, double dead.
Oh,
He went down twice.
Yeah, I just say watch next week, because I mean we're the next several episodes really start hitting stride.
all right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you so much. We're very much looking forward to it. Zach Wilson, where can the people find you?
You guys can catch me on Twitter and Instagram, and also here at AfterBuzz, not just on Resurrection Z, but on Resurrection later tonight, and also tons of other shows, including Doctor Who and Doctor Who Classics.
I'm Katie Cullen. You can find me on Twitter and Tumblr at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet. I am also on Doctor Who Classic and Ruby. We're hitting the last 2 episodes.
Yes. And I'm Megan. You can follow me on Twitter at the Menguin. That's TheMenguin. I'm on a bunch of shows here at AfterBuzz. Lots with these two, actually.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Can't get rid of
Thank
us.
you both so much for coming in and joining us in the studio today. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening. Please go to iTunes, rate, subscribe, all that fun stuff. We will see you guys next time.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.